Well, hello class. I'm Roger Zimmerman. This is CIS189, which is wireless security. Now, we used to have a course called CIS188, which was just about wireless in general. However, we have now sort of combined information from 188 and 189. We've dropped the 188. So we will be talking about wireless technologies a little bit as we go, as well as wireless security. Now, many of you may not have had a security class before, and so we are going to be talking about some general security issues, some wireless issues, and then some wireless security issues. So we'll be covering sort of all three realms in this class. I want to go over this syllabus a little bit with you and talk about some of the highlights and some of the important things. First of all, as far as getting a hold of me to ask questions and so forth, I do keep a discussion, an open discussion area in the course shell, but it is not the place to ask me questions. It is a place for you as students to interact with each other. In order to get my attention, you should email me, but I like you to email me through the D2L interface. You do it here by going up to the class list. And as soon as it comes up, you'll go down to the bottom where Zimmerman is and just click down this down arrow and say send email, and send me an email through that. Now, the reason I ask you to do that rather than just typing my email address is because of this. The subject gives me what class you're in and what topic we're talking about. It's not uncommon for students to email me and not have this information. And I have 3 different classes going. Sometimes I have 4 different classes going, and I don't know what class you're talking about. When I have 100 different students and they say, I have a question about quiz 5. What in the world? I don't know what quiz 5 means if I'm in 3 different classes, and so this helps me to keep that straight. And that's why I ask you to do it through the D2L interface rather than just through your regular email. I have 2 sections here that I think are important. They're important to me anyway. The first one is just about people and exceptions, and I'm going to more or less read this, or at least talk you through it. The first thing I want to say in here is that you are not just a name, a number, a face, a body. To me, you are a valued person. I very, very strongly believe in that. I take interest in who you are, and I care. I care very much about you. I can't stress that enough. And I know that different people have life that goes on around them. Everybody has struggles going on. We have financial problems. We have arguments with our children, with our spouses, with our significant others, with our parents. We have illnesses that come along, accidents that come along, housing issues, all sorts of things that can happen in our lives, as well as some people have problems with things like procrastination, or they just get too busy and overextend themselves. Those kinds of things are real life things that happen. Now, I try to be flexible and understanding, and most students tell me that I actually bend over backwards too much, but there is also an issue of fairness. If I have a deadline and I just let anybody be late, that's not fair to everybody else who might have worked even harder than they should have and stayed up nights and everything else in order to be on time. So I also have to be fair to everybody else. And there's this tightrope that I have to walk between people who are just being lazy or those who have a good excuse. And so I do reserve the right to have exceptions or make exceptions on an individual case-by-case basis. But that doesn't mean that just because you have a good excuse that you get off scot-free and you don't have to take a hit on something. Even if you do have a good excuse, many times you still do have to take that hit on being late or not able to turn something in if it's past the date. The reality is this: a good excuse is not the same thing as having done it. A good excuse for not doing something is not the same as having done it. And so I simply can't just let you off scot-free. That's just not fair to the rest of the class. But I do make exceptions and bend over backwards because I have a heart. I have compassion. I love people, and I love you as a person. And I can say that without hesitation. My philosophy about differences in abilities and cultures. I also walk another tightrope. And this tightrope is that I want to hold people to a certain high standard. I want to hold people to college level work and good English grammar and spelling and things like that. And it's not just about English usage, it's about other kinds of standards as well. However, I also have to recognize that some people may not have English as a primary language, and there are differences in different cultures in how we use language. And so I do have to have some flexibility, at the same time also try to have a high standard. I say all that to say this. I can't see you. We're online, and I don't see your face. I don't hear your voice. And even if I could, I still don't know what's going on. There are some cultures where parents really don't like the children to go to college because that particular culture, you're supposed to work for your family and not go off and do your own thing and break the tradition of your family. Those people sometimes feel stress that the rest of us don't feel. Those kinds of stresses that you have that I don't know about, disabilities, differences in culture, and all of those, I rely upon you to let me know about them because I can't interact with you as I might in a classroom. So please, please, please do communicate with me what's going on in your life. That is key, that good communication skill. All right, let's get down here to the expectations, participation, and all of that sort of thing. This is designed around a 10-week course, although we have 11 weeks plus a finals week this quarter, which gives us a little bit of latitude in flexibility. But during the course, we will have a discussion forum, and I will expect you to participate in the discussion forum. If you fail to participate in more than 50% of the discussions, that's an automatic fail for the class. So please, please, please do participate in the discussion. Now, when you answer somebody, please try to be substantive. Don't just say, yeah, I agree with you. That is not considered a proper answer. That's not really a reply. A reply also adds something. Well, man, I hear what you're saying, but what I find helpful is something else, all right? So that's a little bit more substantive. That's what we're looking for. You must post one original post and answer somebody else. Typically, I do not enter the discussion forums. Typically, you will not see me very much in those discussions answering things. I might once in a while, but not usually. I want you to interact, and that's why I purposely don't get into those discussion forums myself. The textbook, Guide to Network Security. It looks like this. There's only one edition. Don't be looking for a second edition or something like that. I think somebody mentioned to me that there is a second edition listed in the bookstore. So I'm not sure where that came from because that didn't come from me. But there is only one edition of this book, Guide to Network Security, by Michael Whitman, Herb Mattard, David McKay, and Andrew Green. That's our textbook. This quarter, I will be expecting that you're using the Windows operating system. If you're using an Apple or Linux, you might be able to get by with it, but you absolutely must be able to upload your assignments in DOC, DOCX, or PDF format. So please, please, please be sure you do that. I don't really care which browser you use as long as it works. But if you have trouble with one browser, please do try a different browser. Chrome, Firefox, Safari are among the best of those. So we've already talked about discussions. There will be assignments, a few labs, but not too many, mostly assignments. And those also, they're due. By the way, everything is due, discussions, assignments, quizzes, everything is due Sunday night at the end of the week in which they're assigned. So on Monday morning, actually Sunday, 12:01, so effectively Monday morning, you'll have that assignment, and then it's due Sunday midnight at the end of that week. So please be sure you have everything in on time and don't take a hit for being late. So assignments and labs, you'll have something each week. As an assignment or lab, you'll have a quiz each week. As far as the quizzes, you'll take the quiz twice, and each time that you take the quiz, you will not see the answers. That's because there'll be 10 questions in a quiz, but those questions usually come from a pool of at least 20 questions. And since you can take it twice, if I just gave you the answers, you'd have half of the answers by just looking at the answers. Well, that is not really showing me that you know what you're talking about. So if you miss something, you need to look it up and figure it out. Now, the way that D2L works, Desire to Learn works, is that when I set it up that way, there's no way for it to really say this is wrong. Instead, up in the upper right hand corner of each question is a 1 of 1 or 0 of 1. If it says 0 of 1 point, then you didn't get that question right, and you'll have to look up the correct answer to find out what that answer is. And then for the exams, you'll see this from the same pool of questions. However, you will have seen 50% of the questions approximately the first time you take the quiz. The second time you'll see some of those, maybe half of those again, and then maybe half of the rest of them. So now you will have seen statistically around 75% of the questions. So when you get to the exam, there will be an additional 25% approximately that you haven't seen before. So that's how those work. 50 questions on the midterm and on the final. The midterm will be weeks 1 through 5. The final will be the entire quarter. So look for that. There will be a 100-point project at the end of the term, a research paper. I will introduce that about midway through the course. So about week 6 or so, I'll introduce that. Late work and makeup policy. So in order to get full credit, you need to have the work done and turned into me by midnight Sunday night from that week's work. If you're late, you can still turn it in until the midpoint of the term for the first half, or the final week for the second half. However, you will take a hit, a 10% penalty per week hit, and a partial week is a whole week. So if you have a week and a day or a week and a minute, that's 2 weeks. So be sure you get stuff in on time. So in other words, from the first half of the class, you can still do stuff until October 25th, even though it'll be late and you'll take a penalty. For the last half of the class, you can still do stuff until December 6th. However, there's that penalty, 10% per week. That does not include discussions. So discussions, once they close, there is no way in D2L to set it up for late work. You can't set up exceptions for individuals in D2L for discussions. Once it closes, it closes. And there's a good reason for that, because other students need to be able to see and comment on your work. Also, midterms and finals, you cannot make up and you cannot take late. You get an entire week for the midterm, half week for the final, and so that's just it. Now, as far as these points, you see how many of each of these things we have: discussions, assignments, final project, and so on. So this is how many points each one is worth. However, we have some flexibility in the class, and so maybe an assignment, I throw an assignment out for some reason or something like that, or add something. That means that these point values will change. In the case that the point values change, or that the total number, let's say that the total number of discussions changes, then we'll go by the percentage rather than by the number of points. So your final grade for this class will be based on the percent of whatever was possible in the class. So this number of points could change due to the flexibility. The rest of this is pretty much standard fare. Add and drop, those are set by school policy, not by me, and so you can read through those or follow these links to find that information out. And then finally, here is the class schedule, and we might alter it, but it's going to look basically like this: Intro to Cybersecurity, Intro to Networking. So these are the 2 intro weeks. And then we'll talk about cryptography, one of my favorites, firewalls, VPNs, and network authentication, intrusion detection, wireless network security, Bluetooth, ethics and regulation, network vulnerability assessments, and then this final week is a review week and a chance for you to finish up your final project. So there we go. That's the syllabus. And let's just have a good time. Be sure and keep good communication with me. I am available if you really are stuck on something and you need some help. I can use Zoom, and we can talk through Zoom one-on-one if you need that, or if you have something that is pressing to talk to me about in personal, we can also set up those Zoom meetings for that, or use email. Either way, but I am here and available to you. I try to keep a good handle on email. Excuse me. So let's have a good time this quarter.